I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. And folks, we've made it. I've been telling you for the last year that this was going to be coming, and well, we've arrived. Our first in-studio guest, two-time winner on the PGA Tour, Russell Knox. Russell, I can't thank you enough for being here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Beautiful setup here.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, I was just telling Alex before we came on air, I was like, look, we started the Stripe Show podcast just under 2 years ago. And no idea what we were doing. Just, hey, let's have a podcast. It's the next step. I was like, I'm going to record a podcast, but, and Alex is like, we'll just download this app and, call them. They'll answer, hit record, off you go. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot here in Nocatee, in Publix, turned it on. My good friend Jamie Mulligan, who you probably know, teacher to Patrick Cantlay, Luke List, and off we went. And year and a half, year and 3/4 later, here we are. Studio's done, and we're going to be doing a lot more of this, getting players in here, talking about just your game, professional golf, so much happening right now, but also getting in here about golf simulators, which will be kind of part 2 of this podcast, and digging a little deeper on your game, which is in pretty good shape right now. You just got back from Napa Valley, T25.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Yeah,
pretty good. I mean, you're always that first event of the season, never quite sure how it's going to go after. I mean, it was only a month off, I guess. But so, yeah, first and foremost, nice to make the weekend and make a check, make some FedEx Cup points. Mm-hmm. But no, it was good enough. I mean, top 25, you've done a lot of good things correct over the week. Obviously, things to work on moving forward always. But yeah, decent start to the season.
Do you like the wraparound? I mean, we're going to talk about the schedule later on here in the podcast, but do you like this 46 weeks, only a couple weeks in between seasons? Let's get right back after it. Fortinet, Napa Valley, off we go.
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer. Do I like it?
You want an off season, don't you?
Yeah. We all would like a little bit more of a break. I tried carefully answering that question because the fall's been great to me over my career. So I kind of love getting after it. There's some great golf courses statistically for me in the fall, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, I felt like I lay my head on the pillow, blinked, and here we go again. Mm-hmm. So it's been 4 weeks. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the kind of the top players have voiced that they would like more time off, mm-hmm. more of an off season, and let's be honest, everyone would like that, except for maybe if you're a rookie and just getting going.
Right. It's just, it's like, man, I sometimes, like, I love golf. I'm a nut. I mean, obviously, what we're doing here, but when I cover it, the podcast business, follow you guys closely. I've got my own clientele and instruction, and I follow like the FedEx Cup all the way to the end. And then it kind of, there's a peak there in Atlanta. And part of me is just like, I just want to rest for like 6 to 8 weeks or maybe the rest of the year and then get fired back up.
Right.
And it's like week 1, PGA Tour, here we go. Kind of like the NFL, it's like you get 4 to 5 months. And by the time it gets here, your head's about ready to explode. Like you're so fired up for football, you can't wait to go. So right. Part of me, and we'll talk about the schedule more later on, wishes golf was a little more like that. 5 months is a long time, but give us a couple just to breathe and then get fired back up again. So Napa Valley, is that a family endeavor? Like, is everyone going and is like sipping on wine? And I know there's a few events where it's like everybody goes, like we're all going there because we love that place. Is that what it's like in Fortinet?
Yes, it is. I mean, obviously, especially if you're a wine drinker, mm-hmm. A lot of the wives will go out there maybe early with the players and have a few days to mm-hmm. do the wine tours, have a few extra glasses of wine, go to eat at the amazing restaurants out there, etc. But yeah, my wife has never missed the event in Napa, surprisingly. So
my wife wouldn't miss it either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my wife actually doesn't drink wine, which is kind of bizarre, but we really appreciate all the good food out there, and we've become fortunately good friends with Thomas Keller, so we've got to eat at some of his amazing places, which is great. So our experience of Napa is maybe slightly different from the person that likes the vino.
Okay. Who are your guys out there? Who are your best friends out there, Russell? You've been out there a long time now. I mean, who on tour, who you traveling with, going to dinner with, some of the players that you're pretty close with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a strange environment out there. I mean, it's like people call it like the traveling circus. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's you pack up, you entertain, you move on to the next spot. But My best friend out there is a very quiet man called Brian Stewart. Yep. Also played the tour for probably just a year longer than I have. Just goes about his business. Very under the radar player, and then local guys here. David Lingmerth lives 5 minutes from where I do. We hang out a little bit, but to be honest, I mean, golf's a very lonely sport. I mean, fortunately, my wife travels with me a lot, so. That helps, but yeah, I'm not really an overly social person. Okay. I'm out there needing. I mean, I can quite happily go eat by myself at the bar. I'm not that guy that needs a table of 10 people and entertain. But I mean, of course, I'm very social like that. I enjoy. I get along with everyone, which is nice. But yeah, I don't care if I'm not out there to make friends. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Well, that's how the tour's changed a little bit. I mean, it used to be. It seemed like, 20, 25 years ago, the guys would kind of run together a little bit more, but now everybody's kind of got their own individual silo, and you guys have some of your close friends. You may travel with them, but for the most part, when you hit it on the head, like just learning to spend time by yourself and be independent, I would imagine is extremely important. President's Cup this week. You're a Scottish guy, right? So President's Cup doesn't incorporate over there. That would be the Ryder Cup, but I'm curious, is the President's Cup on your radar this week? Are you going to watch it? I mean, what importance is it to you?
Yeah, I mean, just like what you said a few minutes ago, you're a golf nut. So am I. Okay. I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm obsessed with golf. I'll watch men's golf, women's golf, European. I mean, if it's on Golf Channel, I'm watching it. Okay. And so I love it. And yeah, when it comes to these big team events, I mean, obviously being friendly with guys on the U.S. and international team, you want to pull for your friends to play well. So yeah, absolutely, I'll be watching the President's Cup and look forward to seeing how it goes.
Minus 700 is the line right now. The Americans are favored by, and it's, this is kind of the segue, I guess, into. Well, I was going to ask you about LIV, right? How long does it take for someone to ask you about LIV?
What's that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Is it the first question when someone sees you in public, or is it the second?
Well, I'm sure anyone that's been in the golfing world, yourself included, is probably fed up of talking about it.
No, we love it. Actually, podcast
yeah, no, it's always the first. But yeah, I mean, obviously, LIV has affected the President's Cup significantly this year. But actually, just before I came out here, I was watching Golf Channel briefly, and Brandel Chambly actually said even though the U.S. are massive favorites, the individual players on the U.S. team have actually played pretty poorly around Quail Hollow, barring obviously Justin Thomas, who has won there, and Max Homa. But other than that, there's been very little top tens. So maybe even though the internationals are heavy underdogs, maybe there's an opportunity there for them.
They're going to be hungry, right? They're taking the underdog mentality, and I'm sure Trevor Immelman. I just feel bad for Trevor, and what's happened. And a local guy, Cam Smith, of course, elected to go to LIV, and he was going to be the number one player on the team. You got Joaquin Niemann, you got Mark Leishman. I mean, you lose easily 3 of your top 5 players right there, easily. Now, the Americans, of course, DJ's not there, who's playing good. Bryson and Brooks aren't playing that well right now, but, Gooch would have been in probably the mix to some degree as well. So they've been hurt. Americans certainly deeper. Will Zalatoris not playing because of his back. But I hope, and I'm an American, I want them to win, of course, but I hope that the internationals rally and come out and make this thing a competition, at least heading into Sunday. As you mentioned, up in North Carolina, Quail Hollow. That's an interesting stat. Yeah, some of the guys haven't fared that well. It'll be a different course, I'm sure. Very little rough.
Yeah.
It seems like the greens will be pretty vanilla, and the pin placements will be pretty vanilla, and let the length kind of play itself out from an American standpoint. You've been pretty vocal about LIV, really. Last I was reading some of your comments a few months ago. LIV's 4 tournaments in now. New PGA Tour season kicked off last week, as we mentioned. I mean, how would you kind of assess where we are right now at this point with LIV off the ground and running, new PGA Tour season? A lot has happened. We were talking, it can be a bit of a headache at times. But just your general thoughts, broad strokes here on where we are, professional golf.
Whew. I mean, it's a bit of a mess, to be honest. I mean, LIV is obviously taken off. It's kept recruiting new players. It looks like they've done a fairly decent job in running their tournaments. I'm not sure if anyone's watching. I certainly haven't been, but yeah, they've been going fine. And obviously the PGA Tour has been doing great too. I mean, amazing that Rory McIlroy's been so outspoken, and then of course winning the FedEx Cup was great for himself, obviously, and the PGA Tour, that their top dog was able to win. So it's a unbelievably bizarre time in golf, but I think we're gonna have to get used to it. I mean, I don't think LIV is going anywhere, and I certainly don't think the two are going to sit down and talk.
No.
Especially, I mean, being in some meetings with Jay Monahan, and I mean, they sued us as in the PGA Tour. So, I mean, being friends is off the table now. So, it's going to be an interesting next year or so to see kind of where the tour go, and also if more players defect, I guess.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like the suing of the PGA Tour and some of these names that are listed, and some of the names are coming off now, right? Like they've taken their name off. And we had Peter Ginsburg on, who is a top lawyer in sports, and he's been head-to-head with just about every top sports organization. Really interesting conversation. He's been on a couple times. And he says it's unusual in an antitrust lawsuit for names now to start coming off. Because that's really unusual. Right. So, but the PGA Tour has been sued. Do you feel that's an attack on you? You're being sued personally as a player, and is that shared by, would you say, most players on tour? Like they feel like they're personally coming after me?
Definitely now, yes. I mean, at first probably no, but then just kind of the more info that the players have been given from the top PGA Tour guys, they've kind of relayed that yeah, they are suing us. Mm-hmm. Like the money that potentially is going to cost to fight this is maybe coming out of our pockets. And I think when that was said, a lot of players took that personal, and unfortunately some of the guys that have went to LIV were friends of ours. So it's affected relationships for sure, which is a shame, but obviously everyone makes their own decisions, and you have to live with it. Yeah. And I'm always said, I'm like, listen, these guys have made their decision. They have to live with the consequences. And if that's not making the President's Cup team, not getting to play PGA Tour events, like they have to be okay with that. Yeah. So, but there has to be some kind of consequence for your action in anything.
Right. And I think in defense of the PGA Tour, I mean, you guys have signed up to play the PGA Tour. You're a member of the PGA Tour. There's rules, regulations, bylaws of the PGA Tour that have to be followed for them to protect, obviously, the integrity of the PGA Tour and this massive marketing engine that it can be with the TV deals, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that goes into this whole independent contract, which we've exhausted on the podcast. Right. And I've been drilled a number of times from some of my audience that, well, they're independent contractors. They can do whatever they want. It's like, that doesn't necessarily mean you can do whatever you want when you're a member of an organization like the PGA Tour.
True. I mean, yeah. I mean, each week when we register, we do sign a form on an iPad that probably gives us some of our rights to. So we all know what we're signing up for. So yes. I mean, the PGA Tour is an incredible organization. There are rules, though. It's not just like we can do whatever we want. Right. It might look like that, but yeah. I mean, the tour, like it's been hammered in a million times, provides this amazing platform for all of us to compete and make a living, and some people have clearly lost that.
Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey, is expertly crafted and made with extraordinary care. Each single malt is a work of perfection.
Have you been surprised, or is there a name or two that you were surprised that went? And I'm sure there's names that you're not surprised that went. And you can say those names if you want. I say them all the time. Like, I'm not surprised Patrick Reed went. I'm not surprised Bryson DeChambeau went. I'm not surprised Brooks Koepka went. I'm a little surprised DJ went.
Right.
I'm a little surprised Joaquin Niemann went. considering how young he is. I'm a little surprised Cam Smith would. Now, with that said, I get it. Money talks. I get it. Go do your thing. I'm not criticizing it. But I'm a little surprised on a few of them, but I'm not really on the majority of them, especially the older guys that are towards the end of their career, like a Westwood, a Poulter, a Surge. I get it. Like, I mean, okay, it makes sense financially, business-wise. But there's a few for me there. Are there a few for you that you're kind of surprised?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I completely agree with what you said. The older guys, if you're mid-40s, heading towards 50, yeah, I mean, of course you can. I mean, how can you argue? I mean, their chance of continuing to make extreme money on the PGA Tour is smaller than it's ever been. So, of course, someone offers you a lot of money, very appealing, especially when you've lived a certain lifestyle in your prime and all of a sudden the income may be dropping.
And they're going to triple it right now.
Yes, great.
In your, it's going to be wired to you.
Yeah. So, of course, that's appealing.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, for me, Hudson Swafford, very good friend.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
We share the same physio and a man called Jeffrey Banaszak. So Hudson and I have spent some time together, and so yeah, that was a little surprising, just personally for me. But yeah, I mean, Joaquin Niemann, superstar,
right?
I mean, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, I think he's got multiple majors in him if he can remain healthy throughout his career. So yeah, I mean, he was a big shock, but you're right, you hit the nail on the head too. A lot of the names, not surprising, one bit, kind of fit the profile. Don't let the door hit you on the way out type thing. So, but obviously, but yeah, you know how I feel. So.
Well, some of them, they kind of, the door was swinging and they like took to the side and put the lawsuit to get back through the door. Yeah, it's interesting, right? You know, I mean, if someone would have told us 3 years ago that this is where we would be right now, you get out of here. Like you wouldn't even bark up that tree. You wouldn't even entertain you'd be like, you're crazy, man. Like, but here we are. I mean, and LIV's they're 4 events in, and it's a real competition, and they've weakened the state from these players going over there from the PGA Tour. Now, since this arrival, a lot has happened from the PGA Tour side. Jay has announced a number of things, right? It seems like every month there's something new that's coming out. This season's kicked off. We know the following season, 2023-24, is going to be different, it sounds. It's going to be very different with what we're hearing are these elevated events starting at that point. Do you like where that's going, these elevated events and what you're hearing? And B, is that something that should have happened, some of these things, before LIV was a real threat, do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, the elevated events they've announced, I mean, I'm not quite sure everything's been kind of laid out yet. For example, I mean, yes, the money, of course, is great, but I mean, who doesn't want to play for more money, especially on the PGA Tour?
I don't. I got plenty. I don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. But at the same time, it's kind of like following LIV a little bit, but whatever.
Right. No, it is right. I mean, it feels very reactive, right?
Yeah.
Which they had to respond. They had to do something, but it feels like, and I talked to Kurt Byram about this yesterday on the podcast. It just feels like this is a very different direction for the PGA Tour. And the season that we're seeing this year has been the thinking for the PGA Tour for many, many years. 46 events. Let's just keep rolling out these tournaments, and here we are. It's exhausting. There's a lot to consume, and in my opinion, it does kind of get watered down a little bit when you have this many events. It loses its impact a bit, but now the direction is completely different in response to LIV. So I'm just curious, do you like where it's going as a player and where you are in the top 125? Do you like where it's going, or does it feel too reactionary to what's happening with LIV?
I mean, I try and be the person that looks at the big picture. So right now, potentially these elevate events, I might not qualify for. So I like to put myself in say I was number one. Would I like that? Of course you would. I mean, if you were a top player, and I know they haven't quite figured out yet how many people potentially will play in some of the events. I mean, obviously, some of the elevated events are the majors, the players, full field events. Some of them might be smaller field events, like the Century Tournament Champions will be limited. And I know there's talk about maybe some other ones, so on and so forth. But so there's definitely some unanswered questions. Do I think it's a great thing that top players playing together all the time? Not really. No, I don't, and I'm struggling to see why other people think that. I mean, I sit here in some of the meetings and I just hear that from the top guys. We want to play together more. We want to play together more. Well, you could. I mean, there's great events every week. So I'm not really buying that. And to be honest, the top players, I've thought a lot about this. Okay. I could talk about this for hours. The top players need potentially guys like me. Like I hate to call myself a middleman because I've won, I've been up there, but I mean,
winner.
Yeah, exactly. But without top players beating guys, they're not top players anymore. So if you get all the top players together, all of a sudden you're diluting your top player product because some guys are going to lose. Like, well, all of them except for one. So it's I'm not exactly in love with if there are limited fields and the top guys are playing, and it's just kind of like every week it's going to be just completely two different schedules on the PGA Tour. And I know it's kind of like that already, and it has been for a while, but I mean, golf on the PGA Tour, I think, is you watching Rory and Xander Schauffele and the top guys, but then I'm in the last group too, and there's a chance for me to beat the top dog, or there's a guy from the Corn Ferry has a chance to beat them, and you know fine well that it can happen any given week, and now more than ever, a Corn Ferry guy could be top 10 in the world in a year. So it's to me, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen more and more and more. So I think when you're limiting these fields, I just think you're kind of hurting your overall product, and I definitely see both sides of it. But if it was for me, there'd be definitely almost full fields. Play for more money, great. Top guys have to play, wonderful. I mean, who doesn't want to watch the top guys on TV? But I'm very strongly for not limiting the fields.
Is this a conversation in the locker room like all the time?
Definitely.
Like, is it? I mean, you guys are like getting your shoes on and you're kicking it around with so and so. And I mean, you don't have to list names, but what just roughly a percent feel the same way as you do?
I would say a lot more than people think. Okay. Especially because there's only limited top guys. So of course the top guys are looking after themselves, aren't they? I mean, they want as much benefits as possible. But if you're not getting those benefits, for example, the whole player impact program, the PIP, the guys are going to make a lot of money from. If you're not in that, well, are you for it? I mean, if you're not going to benefit from it, do you think it's a good thing? The answer is probably no.
Yeah.
And
so you're looking at it from your own personal standpoint and well-being, but then I would imagine it's difficult because you're part of the Player Advisory Council, the PAC, which I want to get to next. And you're trying to look at it from a PGA Tour standpoint as well, right? Kind of a big picture standpoint, which can be difficult considering the climate that everything is about, well, what are you doing for me right now in my pocketbook? If I sign the dotted line with LIV, you're telling me how much is going to go into my account, right? I mean, that's kind of the climate we're in right now.
Yeah.
So this is interesting to me because, it's always interesting to get the player's perspective of, well, I wasn't in that meeting that happened at the BMW, right? I mean, you were not in that meeting that happened at the BMW.
No, I didn't get that call.
And then, so kind of shed some light on that, because as I understand, it was, let's just say, a lot of the top players, official World Golf ranking players like Justin Thomas and the Jordan Spieth, names that my audience would recognize right away, major championship winners, top 20 in money, multi-winner on the PGA Tour. Those are the guys that were in that meeting, as I understand. And what came from that meeting was, hey guys, we got to play more together. And they went to Jay and said, let's put together this run of tournaments, elevated, whatever, and we're going to play on those. That, again, kind of feels like, okay, live golf, 12 events, all 48 guys are going to play. We know who's playing. And then Jay really, I think, probably has no choice but to take that back to his team and say, guys, we got to execute this. Is that accurate?
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I like some of these events, the Elevate events I might be opinion on, but the PGA Tour has to, they have to reward their top players, and I'm 100% for that. The PIP guys, the top dogs that are driving in the revenue for the tour are extremely important. The PGA Tour needs to do everything they can to keep the Rorys of the tour, Justin Thomas's, Spieths, etc., and they're doing a great job doing that. That's number one important. This kind of behind the doors meeting with the top dogs, I think it's ultimately good. I mean, they got together. They're trying to improve the PGA Tour, and so I agree with a lot of things they said. I just have to kind of tread carefully that the top guys are not running the tour. I mean, the PGA Tour is not for the top 20 players. There's 200 plus members of the PGA Tour, and Jay and his guys obviously know that, and they need to do what's best for the whole tour, not just the top 20 guys. The top 20 guys are doing just fine. Believe me on that. So
apparently not well enough, because they just went and signed for
True. But I mean, this whole kind of secret meeting, yes, there's a lot of good in it, but I'm just a little weary so far that the middleman is not going to just get crushed here.
Well, that takes me to the pack.
PXG has done it again with the launch of a new lineup of drivers, fairways, hybrids, and irons. The new Gen 5 golf clubs deliver significantly increased MOI, faster ball speeds, longer distances, and tighter dispersions, all coupled with the exceptional feel and sound golfers have come to expect from PXG. Schedule your custom fitting or buy online at pxg.com.
Advisory Council, which you've been on for 3 years. James Hahn is on. He's been vocal.
James and I have similar opinions.
Okay.
I think.
So first, tell my audience what the Player Advisory Council is, and just like roughly kind of what you guys do and the impact and value back to the PGA Tour as a whole.
Yeah, so every player gets a vote. There's different kind of categories of player, and you have to pick one from each of the maybe 7 or 8 categories. So the 20 guys that are voted on to be on the council are voted by the players. So it's not just like a random thing. The players vote for certain people to be on. So it's been an honor for me to be voted on it now for 3 years, which has been nice, especially an interesting 3 years with COVID. There was a lot of meetings during that time about how we would return back to competition, and then obviously all this live stuff now. So it's been an incredibly interesting time to get to see a little bit behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I mean, so the Jay and the top guys will have an agenda at the meetings, and we'll talk about different points and potentially vote on stuff, and just kind of the 20 guys will give their opinions on certain topics, and it's been absolutely fascinating to see different opinions what people have. I mean, we'll leave the meeting sometimes being frazzled, being like, wow, how can that person think that and this person think this? And we are miles away, but that's the great thing about having a diverse group of 20 guys, because obviously everyone's in different stages of their career, different financial situations, playing well, not playing well. So it's been a fun couple of years being involved in that.
Has it like the meetings escalated through all of this now in the last year? Like we need to get together more, because what happened with the top players in BMW was totally separate from the pack, right?
Correct.
That was a totally separate agenda.
We actually had a pack meeting the same day.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of wasn't sure how to think about that, because it almost seemed like this is Pack 2.0,
Right.
the top 20 guys.
That's what I didn't understand. It was like,
yeah.
is this part of the pack or is this it's a totally separate thing?
Yeah, we had, it was the same day we had the meeting, so a lot of people confused that. They were like, oh, you were in the meeting with Tiger Woods? I was like, no, I wasn't actually, but so yeah, no, different things, but I mean, ultimately should be kind of trying to get to the same point.
Yeah. Jay's got a tough job.
He does. It's
My goodness.
very, very difficult, especially right now because, I mean, trying to please the top dogs and the 125 guy is almost impossible.
And Jason Gore now coming over to kind of help that, which I like that hire personally, and Jason Gore coming over and trying to kind of sit in between. Does it feel like corporate and player? Do you ever feel that way, like Jay and his team is corporate and we're the player? Because, in every business you have that, like a baseball team. It's like the general manager, it's the suits, right? The suits up there, and then it's the clubhouse. Does it ever feel that way on tour with you guys, or does they do a pretty good job of kind of making that a bit more seamless? And Jason Gore is going to obviously fill some of those shoes too.
No, I feel like Jay's done an unbelievable job at being available to the players. And now more than ever, this is going to be almost my 12th year on tour. Now more than ever, like the communication channels are better than ever. Yeah. Like, so, I mean, it's easy. Jay's around more that I've noticed. Yeah. And then some of his guys, Andy Posner and Phil Marburger, like there's people to talk to constantly. Yeah. So I feel like it's not really like the suits and but having Jason Gore there is going to be great. I mean, especially for some of the slightly older top guys that'll have played with Jason and know his personality. And I think he's going to be a very easy person to get along with. And he's obviously got experience now working with the USGA for a few years, doing a great job. So yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be good, but also I'm okay with I don't need as much to feel as though Jay's my friend. I need him to be like the boss man. Yeah, like and I
leadership.
Yeah, exactly. Like and I think he's doing that, but he doesn't need to be everyone's friend. Sometimes, like I'm fine with him making tough decisions. Like that's why he's top dog, and he has to. And he's doing a great job with that. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult.
It's got to be extremely frustrating as a player to see some of your friends, people you went to battle with, leave to go sign over here, make the money. We all know the reason why people are leaving. There is no other reason, folks, and I've been saying it from day one. There's no other reason, right? This is not about spending more time with the family. This is not about well, we didn't get this at the PGA Tour. It's about money. And they sign it, they go make their money, and they play. But then on the way out, they start shooting holes back at the tour. And you guys, well, as Patrick Reed put it in his press conference, they just didn't listen to us. What are you talking about? It's like, I don't know. It's just never a good idea to run your past employer, or however you want to look at it, through the coals on the way out. It's just a bad look in any walk of life or business. That's got to be frustrating when you start hearing some of that.
I mean, Patrick has had an unbelievable career in the PGA Tour, probably underrated as a player. I mean, obviously major champion, multiple wins, made tens of millions of dollars. And so it's disappointing when you hear people kind of saying that they didn't listen. Well, I mean, there's guys that made you have a career, and worked very hard at. So it is disappointing. But the advantage, I guess, that the upper hand that LIV has, they just have to do everything different than the PGA Tour, and then it's so like we can't wear shorts. They wear shorts. Oh, LIV's great. Yeah, like we play 54 holes no cut. We play 72 holes with a cut. So it's like, guaranteed money. So it's like they're just playing the card of, well, we'll just do different things and it'll be cool and refreshing. I mean, of course it's different, but
it's the rich uncle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like dad said no.
Yeah.
So do you mind if I go hang with Uncle Tommy?
Yeah.
And he's got the boat on the water, and he says yes to everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, my thing was always been like, instead of the tour being forced to kind of make changes, I just think they should double down of what they've done great for forever. And like 72-hole cut events. I mean, that's what golf is. I mean, golf is the stress of trying to make the cut for any player. I mean, look, even top guys, Rory in the first playoff event missed the cut.
Yep.
Like, so the cut is crucially important to golf.
Feels critical.
Yes.
And late on a Sunday is critical.
I mean, and the guy who's leading after 54 holes in a PGA Tour event doesn't win as much as people think. Like, it's hard to close the deal. I mean, 4 days is exhausting.
Look at Fortinet Sunday. What happened to Danny Willett? Yeah. I almost fell off the couch. I mean, I could not believe it.
Yeah.
3-putting from 3 feet. I mean, it's all nerves, pressure, late on a Sunday. I mean, no one saw that coming. And that's the crazy stuff that happens late on a Sunday that you don't get if you're kind of shortening up that tournament, right? And so that, you know, the official World Golf Ranking is a whole nother conversation. I don't want to get into that. But I'll finish with this, and then I want to get up and hit some shots here and get into this terrific iron game. Speaking of underrated, you don't get enough credit for how good of an iron player you've been for 12 years. Real quick, though, I don't know if you remember this. Russell went to Jacksonville University here, and you've been on tour for 12 years. So I was running the academy at TPC Sawgrass, or if you remember that. And I remember you were playing the Hooters Tour.
Yep.
And Russell would shoot 63 on the Hooters Tour, like literally every single week. Like literally every single week.
And still lose to Ted Parr.
Yeah. And I remember one day, and you're out there practicing, I'm just thinking to myself, how in the hell is Russell Knox not on the PGA? Every time I pull up, 63, 65, 60. I mean, I'm just like, this is nuts. And finally, you got out there and off you went, right? Like it's a little bit of timing, putting together at the right time. You got your 2 wins, and now you've been on the tour and, you know, a staple for the PGA Tour for 12 years. But that just speaks to how competitive it was back 12 years ago, and it's probably even more so now to get out there. But the last question is this. Do you ever, you know, just considering the climate with LIV, all this PGA Tour, do you ever, like, are there players and you feel like, man, I hope the PGA Tour doesn't go away? Or do you ever get scared at some point, like, they might just put us completely under? Does it ever get to that point of thought?
No, I don't think the PGA Tour is going anywhere. I mean, I hope not. But, like, to answer your question, honestly, of course I'm scared. I'm scared that as I get older, my career could end any year.
Your retirement.
Exactly. All that stuff. Like, I'm probably not as scared that PGA Tour is going anywhere, more though than my game might go somewhere and my career could be over from just a playing standpoint. But that terrifies me every day, just because, like, I love it to death. But no, the tour's great. It's not going anywhere. We're gonna deal with the competitive threat of LIV. They potentially could run just next to each other. Well, not next to each other. Tour's still miles ahead. But they
can coexist.
Exactly. And plus, I mean, with all these new guys, even Scotty Scheffler, Zalatoris, Cameron Young, like, these are guys that a few years ago you'd never really heard of, especially at professional level. Yep. And then, boom, superstars.
Just Sam Burns a couple years ago.
Yeah, so they're coming.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole factory of guys. I mean,
they're coming.
Obviously, I mean, you see it. College golf, junior golf is
Mito Pereira.
Yeah, as strong as ever. I mean, every year, I mean, even Hovland, Morikawa, I mean, bang, just come out and off they go.
Yep.
So every year there's going to be 5 guys capable of winning majors out of college. And when I first started, that didn't really happen. But now they're coming fast and furious every week, and that's exciting for the tour.
Yeah, Russell Knox, appreciate your time and your honesty here in these, as you put it, these just weird times, right? Yeah. These strange times of professional golf. Stripe Show Podcast. Thanks for joining us, Russell Knox. Part 2. Going to the About Golf Simulator, going to hit some shots.
Haymaker Coffee Company was established in 2021 to create the best coffee to fuel the underdogs who perseveres, who hustles, and have the give-it-all mentality to achieve their American dream. Haymaker Coffee, only roast top quality, specialty grade coffee beans, resulting in brews that satisfies those who demand every drop from their coffee and day. If you work hard, run hard, fight hard, and play hard, we have your coffee right here.